Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Warmly welcome. As chair of the Mission Board on Adaptation to Climate Change and Societal Transformation, I'm pleased to welcome you for this session. Let me first, before we go into sort of the key thing now, the implementation of our mission, let me then first very shortly try and introduce you to our mission, how we have defined it. We have chosen the title A Climate Resilient Europe with the subtitle Prepare Europe for Climate Disruptions and Accelerate the Transformation to a Climate Resilient and Just Europe by 2030. So I think that marks very well what is our vision. And I think we have seen all over Europe that climate change has already made some weather and climate extremes more frequent and more severe. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught a lesson about how closely environmental, societal, and human health are interconnected. It has also taught us the importance of acting early upon scientific warnings. And we have seen that actually change is possible. We have also seen that leaders that react and take care that we are prepared to act on these challenges, they can actually gain support, gain credibility and respect among the citizens. So what this mission will do is it will try and enable resilience and societal transformations and accelerate both the post-COVID recovery and adaptation to climate change. And the vision is to turn the urgent challenge of adapting to climate change into an opportunity to make Europe more resilient, more climate prepared, but at the same time also more fair. Today, a lot of work is going on already in the adaptation field. We are very much aware of that. EU does have an adaptation strategy. I think we will hear more about that in just a minute. So do most member states and many regions and municipalities, many communities. However, we could prepare and develop better and faster if we worked more and more systematically together. For instance, on restoring biodiversity, nature and ecoservice systems, on rethinking water management, on reviving rural landscapes and sustainable food systems, on human health and well-being, and on regenerating community and social infrastructure, including, by the way, also the political governance between different political levels. How to do that? Well, for instance, we could be much better at sharing best practice and worst practice for that matter. We could be much better, for instance, at sharing data and having access to data. We could work better together across silos. Also, we could be better at bringing knowledge into play. And together we could identify where are there some knowledge gaps throughout Europe. We could also facilitate inclusive and deliberative governance processes and maybe do it better and faster if we work together on this. And another example, not only could we work together on technologies, but also cooperate on understanding the behavioral changes and challenges better. That's the kind of things we have been addressing. So by 2030, and I think now the triangle should come to your screen, by 2030, our mission proposed to prepare Europe to deal with climate disruptions and assist all citizens, communities and regions in better understanding, preparing for and managing climate risks such as heat waves, forest fires, droughts, floods, storms, diseases, what have we. That's sort of the first part, the bottom of the pyramid here. Then the second part is that we want to accelerate the transition to a climate resilient future. The mission will help 200 communities and regions develop a vision that focuses both on the protection from climate risks and on the transition to the communities people want to live in. For example, a greener community, a fairer one, a more prosperous one, a more equitable one. And the third part, the top here, is to demonstrate deep resilience. Our mission will connect innovative solutions across borders and provide opportunities to scale them up in 100 deep demonstrators triggering societal transformation. So how do we want to do that? Implementation, of course, here is absolutely key, including one thing that preoccupies us quite a bit. How can this mission be seen as something that gives added value to the regions out there, to the many efforts that's already taking place out there? Also, how could the citizens see this as something that makes sense, not just an additional bureaucratic layer, but something that really helps us to shortcut to better solutions? And also, we are very much focused on how to avoid duplicating what is already being done out there. So that is some of the things we are focusing at in the next phase. You will hear more about this implementation, but that is basically why we have been looking forward to this session today, where we also have a number of guests that I hope can give us some input as to the next phase here, where it gets really crucial, the implementation phase. So I'm happy now to welcome today in our panel here, Yvonne Slimback, Director in DG Climate Action of the European Commission, where she is responsible for international climate negotiations and of mainstreaming climate issues into EU policies. And Yvonne Slimback is former senior advisor in the cabinet of Commissioner Arias Cañete for climate action and energy. Our second guest this afternoon is Lidia González Fernández, Spanish representative in the Member States Expert Group of Horizon Europe from the Ministry of Science and Innovation in Spain. It is worth mentioning that Spain mobilized all its climate experts across disciplines to follow our missions and created mirror groups of experts for each mission. So that has been a really fruitful cooperation with a membership and an example to follow, I must say. And then I also welcome Marco Makula, Vice President of the European Committee of the Regions and Climate Change Adaptation Rapporteur for the committee. And finally, the fourth participant in our panel today is Pirita Lindholm, Director of the European Regions Research and Innovation Network, ERIN, it is called, and former Director of the Climate Alliance. Welcome to all of you. And without further ado, let's start with Yvonne Slimback, who will give us an overview of what's happening at the EU level and how it relates to the mission and how the mission could contribute to this process. So Yvonne, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Connie. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Super. So, good afternoon, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be with you in this session on adaptation in the RNI days. And indeed, my privilege to maybe provide a little bit of historical context to the discussion that we will be having. But maybe to start with the Big Bang, which is that we have now since a bit less than a year under the von der Leyen Commission, the European Green Deal, which is the roadmap, you know, for making the EU economy sustainable and a prosperous society. Under that European Green Deal, just to recall, the main objective is to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And this will be laid down in a legally binding manner in a climate law, which is already under discussion between the institutions, but many other things. It's also aiming to preserve and restore biodiversity. We will be putting in place a climate pact with all citizens and all parts of societies to mobilize enhanced climate action through that. We will be coming forward with a renovation wave approach. We have put forward already a strategy on what we call sustainable agricultural supply chain, so farm to fork. All these many things. But we have to keep in mind that, you know, even if we stop emitting greenhouse gases in the EU, it will not, unfortunately, stop the impacts of climate change. And that is where we see, of course, the many impacts already happening around us. And, we see it also in a very regional manner in Europe and in other regions manifesting itself. So again, that kind of reminds us of the need for and the justification for the Green Deal, because the cost of inaction will really rise drastically if we don't take action now. And we have very conservative estimates that even indicate that we could be looking at an additional annual loss of at least 170 billion euros if we move towards a 3 degrees temperature increase. And this is around 1.36% of GDP. So that is very, very substantial. And that is where, indeed, as part of the Green Deal, we also have the initiative announced that we will be coming forward with a new adaptation strategy. It is due for the first quarter of next year, and we're working hard on it, I can tell you. We want to focus on many different things. I will go into that in a moment. I just want to highlight that, of course, in the current situation where we try to recover from the pandemic, resilience to climate change, resilience overall, but also to climate change, is even more important and kind of a guiding light, to ensure that we do follow this slogan a bit, which is, to build back better and take into account people's health and well-being in our actions. So just to give the historical context, we have, in our view, been a bit of an early actor on adaptation. Many actions, of course, on a regional and local scale with different speeds in member states. And we very much focused in the early stages on integrating the adaptation dimension in our EU action. So policymaking, legislation, etc. And this was also really kind of commended as a very good early approach by the Global Commission on Adaptation in their report last year. Now, so we started basically off with the Lisbon Treaty at the end of 2008, I suppose, 7, 8, where already the objective of combating climate change was inserted for the first time explicitly. And on the backdrop of that, we moved fairly quickly with a white paper on adaptation to climate change, working towards a European framework for action, which then led, yes, a couple of years later, but it was, a lot of work at that moment. It led to a new adaptation strategy in 2013. And in that strategy, we really zoomed in on, how we could promote action by member states, how we could help provide better information for decision making, and very importantly, also how we could, again, integrate this, climate proofing dimension, what we call it, in our EU policies and actions. And I'm very happy to say that, again, quite a few years later, but by now we have member states' adaptation strategies in each member state. That's a very good result. Then we also focused on the legislative side, where we wanted to get more information and reporting from member states on what they were doing. So in the 2014 monitoring mechanism regulation, for the first time we had rules on, on adaptation, monitoring rules and reporting rules. And that has been expanded in the much more recent Energy Union Governance Regulation, where really there's much more detail on adaptation, monitoring and reporting, which will be forthcoming in annual reports by member states. Now, I already briefly mentioned the climate law, which we have been proposing in March of this year. And there again, we have really made the next step in terms of also putting adaptation in a bit more of a legislative and binding context. So we have articles in that climate law that talk about, both the EU institutions and the member states shall ensure continuous progress in enhancing their adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability in accordance with the Paris Agreement, of course, where this overall goal on adaptation is enshrined in Article 7. And it also states very clearly that member states shall develop and implement adaptation strategies and plans based on robust climate and vulnerability baselines and progress assessments. So quite, specifically detailed provisions on adaptation also in that climate law. And we know from the discussions between institutions that in member states and parliament, there are even voices that propose to increase ambition on adaptation. So that is all very positive. Now, I already mentioned we're working hard on the new adaptation strategy due for early.
Be mindful of the time because time is running, so you will have to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Very good. I just want to give you a little outlook towards what are we going to do in the new strategy. We were, of course, doing open public consultation. We got many, many replies, so that's very good. And we have come to the view that we can really, again, boost our action together with all the different actors when it comes to improving the knowledge of the climate impacts. There's still a lot to be improved on that front. And when we have that improved knowledge, we can really also reinforce the planning by authorities and to take adaptation into account in every step of their climate risk management and of decision making. And then, of course, on the back of those two aspects, so information and decision making, we can accelerate action and really try to put forward specific solutions, deploying innovation, and to really also zoom in on the implementation. So not leave it at the planning, but zoom in on implementation and as much as possible look at the preventive side. We also feel that is very important. In view of the time, I will now not go into many more aspects of it, but I do want to flag, on the one hand, that we will also be looking at the international dimension of adaptation, because again, I already referred to the Paris Agreement, and our cooperation with partners on these issues is also very, very important. And last but not least, we really will try to, again, put the solution angle and innovation to the forefront. We want to, as I said, advance on our understanding of the impact, but again, really bringing that towards solutions and rolling them out on the ground. And that is where we're really, really happy that in the mission on adaptation, we see that as a key vector, also for the new strategy. And we're very happy that we have been doing a lot of work together to kind of co-create and co-design the strategy and the mission together. And we hope that with that we can really deploy some very, very ambitious actions to hopefully put Europe on track towards resilience to climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne Slimback. I know that you have a lot on your plate and very, very many interesting things to report. I have to be a bit sharp here. Everyone has been given 5 minutes only. I know that it's extremely limited. But the next to show the good example also is Lydia Gonzalez-Fernandez. And you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Connie, and I like first of all thanks for the invitation to participate in this session. To give a short review of what we already have done in Spain in relation with missions in the first phase of the definition and co-design, and to give a brief couple of ideas of what we are going to do in the next step, the implementation, a big step, big phase. And maybe formulate some questions that are still open from our point of view. Okay, as you all know, Spain is a country that already is affected by climate change, and we can see that the effects in our daily life. And it is reported in different studies the difficult perspective in this issue in climate. So in this sense, we of course are really deeply interested in climate change and adaptation to climate change. At the beginning of the year, the Spanish government approved an agreement to declare the climatic and environmental emergency in Spain with a commitment of 30 action lines to fight climate change with cross-cutting policies and actions. And some of them are pretty much related with the ones mentioned in the previous intervention. Among them, research and innovation are considered key elements in order to improve the knowledge base of climate and to offer solutions to the challenge of climate change for industries and citizens. And in this sense, the Spanish strategy of science, technology, and innovation that has been approved 2 weeks ago includes climate change among its main priorities. Spain has been working very actively in the definition of Horizon Europe, and since the very beginning of the negotiations, we have support the idea, this new concept of missions, and we have participated in the process of definition and co-design. And as Connie has already mentioned, the Ministry of Science and Innovation launched last year, last October, what the so-called mirror groups, working groups, in order to work or to participate in this definition of the missions, and including or taking on board different profiles with different expertise in order to cover all the ambition that was reflected in every mission, because there was one mirror group for every mission. Okay. For instance, in the case of this mission, adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation, of course we have scientists, but not only on the side of climate. We have some people participating or collaborating in the 6th IPCC report, but also experts on social science, not to forget the societal transformation part. Also representatives from NGOs or for enterprise associations, people from the Ministry of Ecological Transition, in particular those that have been involved in the elaboration of the second national Spanish plan for adaptation to climate change that has been approved today, and also people from Climate Kick, for instance. Also, we have counted with the participation of the one member of the mission board and one member for the assembly that has been very, very helpful in order to provide inputs, ideas, proposal to be incorporated into the final report that has been handed out today. And for sure, we can detect some of our inputs in there. And important to highlight that these experts, they have many connections with other stakeholders that can play a key role in these missions and in their implementation. For instance, regions, cities, or maybe projects that are already online. Just to highlight two events that Spain organized around missions. First one was within the framework of COP25 last December, where the Ministry of Science and Innovation organized a big event just to
the camera as well.
Open to the relevant stakeholders and all public and private agents, and of course citizens. And the second one was the citizen engagement, again organized by the European Commission, that took place in July. And also some experts from the Mirror Group participate in that. For the future, what are the plans? The plans are to continue working with the work of the Mirror Group, but maybe we have to incorporate new profiles to be closer to those that have to define or have to implement the activities, the solutions related to the mission. The Mirror Group has the idea of being open groups in order to have the flexibility to incorporate these new profiles. And just to finish, a couple of ideas that are important from our point of view in the implementation phase. One has been already mentioned, is how to involve citizens, how to bring missions close to the day-to-day concerns, how to show that this is important for their life and not only for research and innovation. And the second question that can be key for the implementation and also for the involvement of citizens is that there are some kind of close relation between at least 4 of the 5 missions. So how to avoid overlappings, but how to get the best of these synergies that can appear from this connection. So I stop here. Thank you very much.
sorry. So sorry, I was locked out. Don't know what happened. So I'm really sorry, Lydia Gonzalez. I guess you have finished your presentation by now?
Yeah, because it was only 5 minutes, so
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you so much for that. And sorry for the inconvenience in this. We also have a male amongst us in this panel. Welcome, Marco Makula, from the Committee of the Regions. We're looking forward very much to hear what you think about this initiative and how that can support whatever you're doing. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Connie, and dear participants of this session and audience. Let me first stress heavily so that the real action on this climate activities, it needs to happen on the practical grassroots level by the citizens, by the cities, regions, together with the local industry, together with local universities and so on. And just to give you one figure, so we have in the whole Europe, we have about 1 million local or regional elected decision makers. And now I challenge you, Connie, and all who are acting on this. So let's operate so that we have these 1 million decision makers, or at least a large majority of them, to work together. As you referred, the title of the mission, Climate Resilient Europe. So that's exactly what needs to happen now. My first message is really linked to this. So 1 million decision makers, all activities that we are seeing tackling climate change. So we need to including adaptation, but all the other activities as well need to be well integrated. So this systematic work, what you already referred to. And that means more commitment, more multi-level governance, and above all, we need to have sustainability as the new normal. So not going back to the time what we had before the COVID-19, but think sustainability as a new normal in all public and private operations, and that should include then budgeting and all financing processes. The second is what we experienced, what the citizens all experienced during the COVID-19 was that Europe, the member states, cities, citizens all acted together, stopped up and stepped up to operate together for a greater good of society. Let us now use that as an example. We must treat the climate change like an emergency. So that is where we need more commitment to action. And that is very good, so that, Connie, as you referred to, so that accelerating the transformation, that is the crucial part of this mission. And as you already referred to, so that you need the demonstrators. So we have the cities, we have the regions, we are very strongly operating through the Committee of the Regions as well, so that we want to encourage our members, or through our members, the cities to volunteer, or regions to volunteer to be the forerunners in this acceleration process. And that does not mean only that we say that this is an important activity, but they need to operate locally, so local collaboration and building more European partnerships based on this. So that is something that we must support by all means, that we have the Committee of the Region, and I think the whole EU needs to do that. What does this mean then? So we have already in our Committee of the Region 5-year priorities, we have strongly given a strong message to the Commission so that the collaboration needs to be deepened, and that means take an example with the Joint Research Centre to use the latest scientific knowledge, not only the one that we have in our own member state level, but all around Europe. And that scientific knowledge, we have a good instrument to that. We have, on one hand, already piloted several years with the COR and the Joint Research Centre on this Science Meet Regions together with the European Parliament. So let's deepen that. Let's take that in active use with this mission as well. And another good example definitely is that just a few weeks ago, the first annual foresight report of of the Commission of the European Union was published. Let's go deeper to that, because what I found, I've personally as well an experience a lot on foresight studies in the policy making. So let's look that more deep. So what we can do together with your mission, with the Vice President Šefčovič, whose one of the tasks is really to increase the collaboration with the COR and the Commission. So let's look deeper on this 4-dimensional analysis of resilience, what is said there in this foresight report. So special attention to social and economic resilience dimension there, then the geopolitical dimension, and then the green dimension and the digital. So this, again, it's the integration of all these different elements. And there from that, so I come to that in different parts of Europe, we see this adaptation differently. But if we all rely on the latest scientific knowledge, we need to take much more action. And one of those good examples is that the temperatures are getting higher and higher, and not the same way in all parts. But as an example, the Arctic is smelting fastest. Winter temperatures are already 2.5 degrees centigrade higher than the pre-industrial. You, Connie, from Denmark with Greenland, you see that, and it's a lot in your media, but we all need to operate on that. The northern Finland, Lapland, we have more and more snow and floods based on that every spring. The southern Finland, we don't practically anymore have snow, and that's a big change in the life of the people. But let me just conclude that one of the targets that you could and we could put together on the work of the mission, the climate mission, is to operate and plan showcasing the work of this 100 or so demonstrating accelerator cities, so that we could go on to Glasgow for the next COP a year from now, COP26. Not only that the media tells about that member state ministers are slow in getting agreement on what needs to happen. So we can demonstrate what the cities and regions are already doing, and how this UN, how we can be on our national or local voluntary reviews, so that which many of our member cities have done already. My city, Espoo in Finland, we have done with 1,000 people who contributed to that report, what we are doing implementing all the 17 SDGs. Let's showcase that kind of examples there in Glasgow and get committed to the public and media that citizens, you can do, everyone can do a lot. So this is my clear message. So very good that we now get this mission moving on. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Markku Markkula, also for this very positive and constructive input and the expressed will to really work together and activate, as you mentioned, the 1 million regional members out there, and how we could do more to work together. Thanks a lot for that. The last participant in our panel today is Pirita Lindholm from Erin. And Pirita, I give you the floor to you now, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present here today some thoughts from the ERIN network, as we bring together regions and various actors from the regions to work on a wide research and innovation agenda. The missions are, of course, very close to our heart, as they have this bottom-up approach. We are, of course, particularly pleased to see this mission focusing really on regions and communities. Today, I will give some thoughts on 3 areas. So one on the approach of the mission, the governance, and finally on the question of synergy. Well, first of all, it's very easy to be positive about the mission report, because we really appreciate this 3-layer approach. So because it's one hand, it's very inclusive. So it engages all regions and communities to work on adaptation. But at the same time, it has this focus on having 200 piloting regions and communities, and then again 100 demonstrators. So after we had a very good exchange with Connie during the summer break, in addition to collecting inputs from the ERIN memberships on this mission, we recently also launched an expression of interest to our members to be part of this mission. So we can see that in a very short time frame, more than 20 regions and cities were very eager to join and ready to work on this issue. So I guess I can say from that, this is just a start. So your question, Connie, on whether the mission has added value, definitely our membership sees that very positive. So this morning we heard a lot about discussions on technologies. So of course we need further technologies, we need scaling up the existing ones when it comes to the missions. However, we feel that the key innovation in the mission is really this multi-actor approach. So bringing the different actors together on a collaborative way. It might sound easy, but we all know that this requires a change in the way we work. So, of course, we have the citizen engagement is absolutely crucial in the missions. It has been emphasized a lot during the discussions. But it's also about facilitating the different actors work together. So understand each other and work together towards a common goal. This is really essential. The mission report talks about climate resilience contract. That could be a really good tool to ensure that this multi-actor collaboration, the common goal, the shared responsibilities, and of course the common follow-up also of the implementation of the mission. In addition to this multi-actor approach, this could be a tool to bring the different government levels together. This has been also mentioned already, but this is the missions, and this mission is a very good opportunity to bring the different levels of government together when it comes to priorities. We were talking about also on the adaptation strategy, national adaptation strategies, but also funding programs. Let me give an example there. So this is about really about finding also those synergies between the levels of government. If let's say a region, for example, a region of Blekinge in Sweden would have a mission approach in their regional innovation strategy, so the S3 Smart Specialization Strategy, and that they would include activities, priorities related to water technology or something else that is really linked to the priorities of this adaptation mission. We could also combine funding and accelerate the work of the mission with these joint efforts. And in addition to that, those funding synergies, it was also already mentioned, of course, the synergies between the different missions. If we look at, for example, the mission on climate or the mission area on climate neutral and smart cities, we know that a lot of the activities at local and regional level around climate mitigation and adaptation are happening together. So in Synergy, let's say, there are strategies that combine the two. So this could also be an opportunity and positive synergy for the mission to find ways either to use some of the same communities in implementing those two missions. Or I would also be interested in linking with the regional level in the mitigation part we were talking about the recovery, and we can see that with the recovery, there are also a number of different regions that are making a kind of regional green deals or climate pacts, which are really putting political priorities and financing on the different areas on both mitigation and adaptation. So finally, on the synergies, I think you have done an excellent job in the report to highlight a lot of the different synergies with the different strategies that are currently undergoing also in the framework of the Green Deal. Maybe there one additional point could be a link with the European partnerships that are covering this area, because they will be also very much looking at finding those and implementing different solutions linking to the adaptation field. So with this, I would like to conclude mainly by saying that we are very happy for this opportunity. We very much hope to work very closely together also in the future on this mission. And as said, we would be very eager to mobilize our regions and cities to work on this, and of course can support the proposal of Markku also to use those examples in the next COP in Glasgow. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Pirita Lindholm, and also for a very, very positive take on this. I must say that I'm sure that not only myself, but also the colleagues who have been working hard on this have been encouraged by your comments. It goes for all four of you, because it seems that, you know, when you sit with this, is there really need for this, or are we just duplicating something that people already think is being done somewhere? But from your comments, I really take it that no, there are some gaps that we can identify, and it has been extremely positive to hear how much you're willing to co-engage and co-work on this project in its implementation phase. Time will not allow, unfortunately, for a lot of further debate and questions and answers and things like that. But before you leave this, we have a small poll to make. I think it should come on your screen now, where participants will be asked whether you are interested in partnering up with the mission in its next phase. And I think it should come to your screen. I hope you can see it. And there should also be some instructions as to how you can vote here. You can see it. Would you like to become a partner and work on the implementation of the mission adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation? And yes, no, not sure. And you also see the mail address. So please fill out there so that we get an indication of the interest among the many that I know have followed our debate here today. So I'll just give you 10 seconds to vote. And here we have the results. 75, 74, 73%, I don't know why it's changing now, it's 75, meaning that it's not totally finished yet, maybe. But it means around 3/4 of those who have attended this meeting would be interested in becoming a partner and work on the implementation of this. 1/5 would still be in doubt, and almost no one say, no, definitely, we are not going to do that. So thank you very much for giving your voice to this. And now today we have, together with the other 4 missions, we have delivered our first sort of written work, our first deliverable. And now what comes next? Well, it's up to the EU institutions to decide whether they want to give the green light for each of the missions. I know that the Commission is planning sort of a communication on the mission and the mission works sometime end of this year, December probably. And thereafter, and we have started that, then we come hopefully to the implementation phase. And I really hope, and I know that my colleagues in the mission board very much hope that we can continue the good spirit that we have had this debate in, work with you. And we also very much hope that despite the many, many stakeholders in this, that we can deliver the next phase on this and deliver implementation of this with the speed and the urgency that the cause requires. I think that is absolutely key for Europe, that it's not something that 2 or 3 years down the line we would say, oh yeah, that was something with some mission boards, but what came actually out of that. And I think it takes a lot from all of us to ensure that what we really prioritize and do is something that makes a difference to the climate, but also to the citizens whom I think would really love to see Europe work together on all this. So that's what we are trying to do in the next phase. I thank all 4 speakers very much for your contributions today. Looking forward to continue to work with you. And thank you to all of you who followed it out there. Have a nice evening.